talked about this from a pulpit before, but I do believe this is a really great example of love in action, so I think it's a good fit. I'm not sure you're going to be able to see that, but I wonder if we didn't do the gallery view. Is that hard? Take your time. So let's just start with why we even did this. I'm here with Amy Cunningham, my friend who's been a board member with me since the very beginning of this project, and we're probably going on like 3+ years. And we gathered together with a group of local neighbors who are concerned about the raising cost of home ownership here. And a lot of us that either are from here or moved here with the idea that this was an economically inclusive town where, you know, you might have a neighbor that's a teacher or a painter or a, you know, whatever you might imagine, or being worried that it had started to just become that you had to have a professional degree to be able to buy a home in Webster, which is just not the kind of town it's been over history. So we wanted to figure out what everyday people could do about that. We're more like coming at this from like a grassroots community type of point of view versus policy experts. But we did talk with an expert at WashU who suggested community land trust as a possible good fit for Webster. So you can go on to the next one. Thank you so much. So why we wanted to do it, like I said, was worrying about the loss of some of our smaller homes getting torn down or just prices getting so high. Also just looking at history and how people have gotten pushed out over time and wanting to sort of repair that. And I won't, this is too many slides, so we'll go ahead one more. This is a slide that just tells about how our smaller homes are getting torn down. We did some, the city of Webster did some research, and when a house gets torn down here over the last 10 years, the average size of the replacement house is 2.5 times bigger, and the average price of the replacement house is 4 times higher. So every time we lose a small home, we lose a whole layer of what the economy, you know, might include. Next slide, please. So there's no way you can read that, and don't worry about it, because I'm going to tell you in a friendlier way anyway. But the idea of a community land trust is a nonprofit that's run by neighbors, buys a house, and they hold the land forever, as long as the group can keep going, and they sell the home to a family at a much more affordable price. And because the nonprofit owns the land, and it's a community-operated nonprofit, even when the next person buys it, we're able to keep the price at an affordable level. So that land ownership is sort of the community agreement that this is a home that we're going to try to preserve as an entry home, or maybe an empty nester home, or, you know, those pieces that have been getting pushed out in our town. Next. Yeah, perfect. So in order to fulfill our mission, we've set some income limits on who could buy one of these houses. The area median income in St. Louis actually is $111,000 for a household of 4. So that's, you know, that's the median, and we're setting that as our max to apply to purchase one of these houses. So I just want to tell you that at the beginning, this was us sitting down and like having votes, doing research, and making decisions. And I'm excited. In a few slides, you're going to see we finally have a house. So it's a lot more fun to learn about it all now. That's a picture of our team, team of volunteers and board members. After several years of work, that was like the first time we ever did something social over the holidays, and that's because we had closed on the first house. You can go ahead. Okay, the idea of the land trust model is that you could buy an existing home and renovate it, or you could build a house. You know, there's no real rule about what kind of real estate it is. So because Webster is so built out, you know, we're trying to be creative and one by one piece together a series of homes all over town that we can preserve the affordability of. So we have researched, you know, this picture that is one that, you can go to that one. No, you're doing great. That is an example of a modular house that we would, if we got an empty lot, we could buy something like that and put it there and try to build a porch and make sure it matches the neighborhood, but keep that price point down. So I think the summary of that point is just that we're going to try to get creative in terms of piecing together sort of a portfolio of affordable homes. So that status update slide tells you about that's a picture of our very first house. It's walking distance from the Hickson Middle School and the Webster Recreation Center. It's like 3 blocks away. What happened was, we'd been doing community meetings. We finally got in the newspaper 2 weeks ago. You should go dig this out of your flower bed if you live in town. It was definitely a sort of, if you build it, will they come approach in terms of how donations might work. We want to ultimately be able to write grants and grant applications, but we kind of felt like we needed to prove ourselves with our first home. And a retired couple in Webster, a retired social worker and teacher, donated a large part of their retirement savings. They're both 81, and it's a very inspiring choice that they made. They wanted to have a lasting legacy that they could see and know they were going to be helping another family raise their kids in town the way they got to. So we are sort of the love and action part right now is so fun because there's so many ways to help get this house ready. And I was there yesterday, and one woman was working in the yard, and another guy was fixing some electrical stuff with a headlamp on because he had turned off all the power. And so there's just lots of small ways right now, and it feels like a really rewarding way to be involved in the community. Our real job right now is trying to get the word out. Amy has a clipboard and some postcards. If any of you are willing to be on our email list, please put your email there, or just take a postcard and you can find us later because it has our website on it and everything. But hopefully we're going to have the house ready by the beginning of June, and the way that it will be sold to someone is they'll have to be on our interest list. So if you know anyone that might be interested in buying a below market home in Webster, they do need to go put their name and email address into the form on our website, because the idea is this isn't going to be like on the MLS realtor listing. It's more of a you're connected, you want to be connected to this organization, and you meet that income max, and so you just put your name there, and then we'll send pictures of the house when it's ready and find out if you're interested in applying. You will, just to give you some concrete numbers, this house is probably going to be worth by the time we're done, $315,000 or something, and we're going to try to sell it for $250 as our goal. So it'll be substantially below market, but the family or household that decides to buy it will have to qualify for a mortgage for that below market price. So you kind of have to can't make too much, but also can't make too little to qualify for a mortgage. But we're hoping we're opening up a sweet spot that Webster's really not serving right now. So just spread the word if you know a potential homeowner, and if you're interested in volunteering, you can fill out a little thing on our website or just put your email down. One of the things another thing that's helpful for people who are in the community is if you hear about someone that would be interested in selling their house to us, we can't really compete in a bidding war. So if we can find people interested in selling a home, maybe they're downsizing or whatever, where we don't, it would need to be a modest size home, but then where we don't have to compete on the open market, that's what we're going to be hoping to be put in touch with. So needless to say, there's lots of ways to help us, if nothing else, just by spreading the word. Thank you very much for the time. I don't know if questions are usually a part of a homily, but.
We're pretty relaxed.
Okay, good. I love that. Well, if anyone has a question, please. Yes. Helen.
Has there been any resistance to this?
It's a good question. I think one of the things that is interesting, there's a couple of things we have going for us. One thing is people get really nervous about something different, and while this is different, it is single-family homes, so we don't have to fight the people who are scared of multifamily homes, which Webster also needs, but we're not going to have to cross that bridge right now. So people think of Webster as single-family homes, and that's the model we're using. The other thing is as I described, when you think about when you think about an area median income household, you're thinking about teachers, first responders, nurses, medical professionals, and so, I think that people get really nervous and worried about super low income housing, and I hope our organization can be a part of opening people's minds about that, but that is not what this is. So we hope to be a part of Webster thinking about how to be more welcoming with its housing, but we haven't gotten the resistance of the people who might come out and force against low-income housing, because this is really more workforce-level housing. That being said, I am positive there are some people that are very suspicious of this, but they're not coming to talk to us, so we'll find out later maybe. But house by house just feels like a scale of change that people can adjust to. Yeah.
Maybe a sort of prorated property tax then too. One of the plans of Webster is high property tax.
I know.
If you're living in something that's valued at $350 or whatever, and you only pay $250, where do you stand?
Yes.
Is that part of the bargain here?
Yes, well, something that I didn't say yet is that community land trusts have been around since the 70s, and they are very good about sharing their work and their lessons. Some towns that have grown a bigger community land trust have negotiated with the tax assessor to say, hey, guys should be recognizing that these properties are being sold at a reduced rate. So we haven't gotten there yet. But I will say this, when we are devising the home price, that $250, it's based on what a household that makes a household that makes like below area median income. We take that, what their take-home income is, and we make sure the housing payment, including taxes, is less than a third of which is the gold standard for what's considered affordable. I hope that's not too technical, but the basic idea is we are accounting for how expensive property taxes are here when we set the home price, and then we hope to grow enough to work with the tax assessor to adjust that. Seems like someone over there. Yes?
So the first house, the people who were living in it donated the house?
Actually, the house was so the people who made the donation donated money to our nonprofit organization, and that was tax deductible for them. Then through neighbors and friends, they knew some friends in their neighborhood had moved to memory care, and they put us in touch with the son. So it all ended up happening sort of in a chain of events, but no one donated the home. Although they did, the family who ended up selling us the home did, forego putting it on the market and getting maximum dollar. They were like, wow, this is cool. These people are donating the money. We want to be part of it. And they sold it to us at a pretty modest appraised value. Does that answer it? So there's a donor family, there's the family who owned the home, and they both really partnered together to let us purchase it.
The land trust, explain that to me. I'm used to it in very rural areas where they're preserving land.
Yes.
Not developing it. This is not preserving land, preserving glory.
A cost. Yes. So like you're able to use that same legal structure. It's interesting because community land trusts operate in different places for different reasons. Sometimes it is like natural conservancy type goals. Some cities have them to preserve like cultural assets like parks and things like that. So it is a tool that can be used a lot of ways. But fortunately there's a lot of examples we can follow that are using it for housing affordability. But the main thing is a community-controlled nonprofit organization that holds a portfolio of real estate. And then the homeowner does have the deeded interest in the home, the house itself, and then they have a lease, a ground lease for the exclusive right to occupy the land for 99 years, and it can be renewed. So it's anyway, I know people's eyes might cross a little bit, but the idea is, they have exclusive right to occupy the land on the home that they own in full ownership of just the structure.
It's kind of like a condo, it sounds like.
Yeah, you know what? The president of our board always leads with, it's like a condo, and I always forget to say that because people are like, oh, it's like a condo. Yeah, yes.
But they're not free to then
Right.
So they want, how do you do that?
Yeah, so one of the things, it's the term of that ground lease is that we have the first right of refusal. We have the purchase right at the, when they want to sell to, and then we sell it to another income qualified person. However, because we want it to be as many ways as we can make it like traditional homeownership, we want to, so they can recommend the next seller, the next person, owner, and we're supposed to, give that serious consideration. Also, they can, their immediate heirs can inherit it, which is kind of surprising, but they can. That's like best practice in land trusts. So, if their heir happens to be like a millionaire, would they choose to stay in a house that has controlled price? Maybe not, but they would have that legal right to do that. Yes.
Yeah, are you finding that the homes that you're able to, like someone to this, because Webster Road is a interesting area to live in. I just sold my house last night.
Oh, wow.
In Webster Road. Unfortunately, the area I lived in was right by Algonquin.
Oh,
And so Algonquin bought up all of this land and then decided that they couldn't expand the golf course. Then wound up selling it to a developer, so the developer tore down these small homes that hadn't been and built all these big ones. So it's an issue. So that area would not be probably conducive to something like this. But I could foresee where behind the high school and that, I mean, the smaller homes are perfect for something like this. So are you gonna find that you're gonna have a whole bunch of these homes that fall into your, efforts in a huge area, that you're gonna have all this, all like subdivisions for homes?
I think what you're saying is true, that there's certain parts of town that will be a better fit just because the house values our ability to acquire the homes. I think, we really want to make sure that we acquire some of the homes that are at risk of being torn down, like what you just described. North of Kirkham, on Lee Avenue, some of those streets have just a lot of tear down activity, a lot of just directly north up in North Webster, a lot of tear down activity. So we hope to be active there to, developers just incentivized to do that because they care about price per square foot. And what we care about the opposite thing, which is holding that price down. So we just hope we can get some of those houses before that point. If we could help a couple that doesn't need, they're moving on, still get a fair price for it. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I need to sell my house, but I don't want it to get torn down. We want to find those families that are like, they want their family home to be preserved, and they're happy with the size it was. They don't need it to be maximal on the lot, Yeah.
Is a friend of mine works with the St. Joseph Housing Initiative in the city.
Okay.
Is this very similar to that?
I don't know that program. I think, there's not an actual, there's something called St. Louis Art Place Initiative that's in the city that's kind of like a community land trust, but I don't know of another one in town that's active. But it could be, similar without being that exact format.
It's just Strive Electric. I live in Shrewsbury.
Yeah.
And Strive has done so many of the St. Joseph Initiative housing.
Oh,
for
how cool.
low-income families. And he may be someone that
We could talk to,
we could
yeah.
talk to.
Okay, that's a good tip. That's so funny because it reminds me of like a whole other way people are helping out, which is, we're needing all these tradespeople and stuff on the house. And so we've been trying to introduce ourselves and, like Climate Masters was helping us replace the HVAC and, just to give us if not a discount, at least just have patience with the fact that we have a different set. They're meeting a volunteer over there to give their bid. It's a different setup. So we're just trying to get to know the local business community in that way. It's a good thing to know. Yes.
And it's my understanding that the UCC church where we used to be nested, that's a little bit east on Lockwood,
Yes.
was thinking through a program where they were going to develop affordable houses
for
On the
seniors.
property, yes.
Yes.
Do you know anything about that, or?
I do know, I mean, I was so excited about what they're trying to do that I know they were looking to get low-income housing tax credits in order to fund the redevelopment of the building, and I know that is like a crazy process where there's like 70 applicants for 2 awards each year, and so I know they've gotten declined a couple of times. Last I heard, they have a new plan to get there, but I don't know any details about it, but I mean, I'm ready to support whatever, because I think it's really exciting, and I love the idea of that being, you know, that church presence being there in a new way. You know, it's such a beautiful building and location, so. Yes.
Maybe I missed it, and you said, how did you decide that this is what you wanted to do in the community? Like, what is your connection to this kind of project?
Me, Farrell. Okay, I didn't know if you meant like the whole group.
No, I meant
Yeah.
personally.
Yes. Oh no, that's.
You're choosing to spend a lot of time doing this.
Yes, yes. So my family moved here in 2013 from Denver, but I'm from Arkansas. And I got involved with a group called the Alliance for Interracial Dignity that was started in 6319 years before I got here. And, you know, 1 year after I arrived to town, Michael Brown was killed, and I was looking for how to, basically I was looking at how I was it gets into a long story, but the short answer is, I'll try. I grew up in Little Rock. I went to Little Rock Central High, which is a famous high school in the civil rights movement. It's the one where the National Guard had to escort the Little Rock Nine into the building. I felt like I had been given a lot of opportunity to do something different as the next generation in terms of not living in a really segregated place. We fell in love with Webster, and all of a sudden, like after Michael Brown was killed, I was like, this is the house I'm gonna raise my kids in, and look what I've done. I'm on an all-white block the same way I grew up. So I got involved with that group, and we had a housing action team, and this is going back, like I said, to 2014. And we did a lot of things, but a lot of it was educational, and eventually I think a lot of us were like, you know, enough learning. We have to take action and do something, even if it's small and we don't know how much it will take off. And so we just, you know, through a lot of learning and relationship building, eventually we felt like we could come up with a real plan, and there's just a lot of strong community members involved that have roots way back further than me that understand how Webster works, and so together we came up with this. And I mentioned the WashU professor, like she let us be like a case study for her grad school class for a whole semester, and they did, their whole semester was like, what would a community land trust look like in St. Louis, and using us as like a lab. So that helped us make it real too. We had some real advice from someone who knew this concept well. Thanks for the question. I never really talk about that. Anyone else? Thanks for all your interest.